There we go.
Dr. Paula Ruffin Show. Dr. Paula Ruffin.
Oh, I just did an Oprah thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Paula Ruffin.
That is my good friend, Dr. Otto Janke. And I have the
Ladies and
pleasure.
gentlemen, Dr. Paula Ruffin.
Oh, Otto has some really cool intro music on his podcast. So thank you for gracing me with that.
Yeah, well, I don't think it helped.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the ratings are.
No, it won't help.
We just spent the previous half an hour not recording, but just like laughing our butts off and telling stories and talking about some really, really funny and perhaps inappropriate things. But all right, so here's the intro. This is my good friend, Dr.
We didn't break any laws.
No, we did not. So we are here to talk about longevity and health. And the reason I wanted to have a conversation with Otto is because his whole platform is he wants to educate the world on longevity and make, what do you say, the next 10 years of your life, the best 10 years of your life?
Your next decades, your next best decades.
Yes, there you go. And for me, my whole platform is building a legacy of health so that you have something to leave your family. And longevity and legacy go hand in hand, because you can leave money, but if you don't have health, the only wish you are making on your birthday is for one more birthday. And so we want people to have decades of birthdays with so much vitality and be able to, and you probably have heard me say this a whole bunch of times, like my mother at 86 years old, super vital, drop effing dead. Like that is what we want out of life. So her legacy to me was to live a life how she lived. And I'm raising my daughter the same way. So not just with longevity, but then to leave the next generation even better and have their level of health. So with that being said, welcome, Otto.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. You know, I heard a speaker talk a short time ago, and they asked the crowd, what would you do for $10 million? And they said, well, we'd do anything $10 million. He said, if I gave you $10 million today, what would it do? They said, it'd be incredible. He said, I'm going to give you $10 million today, but one of the stipulations the rule is that you don't wake up tomorrow. And they said, what? They said, I'll give you $10 million. He goes, I have a check here for $10 million. I will give that to you, but the stipulation is you're not going to be alive tomorrow. And then everybody said, no, that we won't. He said, that's $10 million. That could be transformational for you. You could do it. You know what you do it? They're like, yeah, but we're not going to be here tomorrow. Oh, yeah. So tomorrow is more important than $10 million to you? And they're like, well, yeah. He said, listen to what you're saying. That tomorrow, you don't even know what's even going to happen tomorrow. It's worth more than $10 million to you. I've said this many, many times on our podcast, is that I don't care how many zeros you got in the bank. I really just don't care. I don't care how many vacation homes you have. I don't care how many cars you have. If you're not healthy to enjoy them or allow other people to have them, then they're useless to have. It just doesn't matter. And the times when I look back, and my parents both passed in 2005. People always ask me, what do you think you would want from that? I say the same thing that everybody wants. They don't want the cash from their parents. They don't want the cars. They don't want the houses. Same thing I want. I want is just one more great day with my parents. That's all I want, is one more great day. They say, what would you have? I said, my mom used to make lasagna. She'd make lasagna, the big sheet pan of lasagna, and we have an angel food cake. We'd have that. He goes, if I had that one
food cake too.
If I had that one more time, I'm good. Just one more time sitting around, and we used to drink Lambrusco out of a bottle, the cheap stuff, and that I just want one more great day.
Yeah.
And your kids don't want the stuff. They're going to tell you, yeah, I want this. They want one more great day with you. What can we do? So then what can we do to help you to get that one more great day for days, weeks, months, years on end? We start putting those together. That stuff is transformational. That's the stuff that's transformational.
Wow, that was pure gold. I love that story. So now you all see why I just love Dr. Otto and the message that he's sending to people. So and trying to inspire people with. And I want to ask you, Otto, so much like my mother was a major influence on me
Yep.
to
Yep.
be where I am today, tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up in your household and how you got to walk this path. What brought you here to try to educate people on these lessons, or inspire? I think it's a better word for it.
So I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My brothers are 4, 6, and 8 years older than I am. We actually had a brother who died the day of his birth.
Mm.
And he would have been 2 years older than I am. And I'm pretty sure if he had lived, I may not have been here, which is a really odd thing to say.
I had a sister in between my brother, who's 3 years older, and my sister, who's 9 years older. And my parents actually told me they probably wouldn't have had another child. So I mean, we have that in common, that we're here for a reason, for sure.
I don't know how I got into chiropractic. I tell you how I got into chiropractic. And I was living in Las Vegas, and I was spending time there. I was spending time as a young guy in my early 20s. And my brother, who at that time was a physical therapist, said, "You should be a chiropractor." I didn't know what the word was. Never heard of it. And I used to go to the library in Las Vegas often for 3 very important reasons. One is because we couldn't afford the AC in my office and in my house and in my apartment in Las Vegas. So I used to go to the library a lot because it was always cool. Number 2 is I could read any book I wanted to for free, and I could take a nap there too. So 3 very important reasons why I took this path. But I looked up chiropractic in a book. I don't know what the book was, but I looked up chiropractic in a book, and I'm going through. I tell everybody this story, is that there have been 3 sentences that have changed my life. In the first sentence, 2 sentences, was that we are the most over-medicated, most over-surgery country in the world, and we're not the healthiest. And I took that book and I said, son of a bitch, someone else feels the same way I do. The next line was that everything we've ever needed to be our healthiest is contained, locked within us. We need to unlock that for full health. And I said, and I was a young guy, I was in my early 20s. And I said, son of a bitch. And so I had to find out who wrote that. And it came from Palmer College of Chiropractic. I got their toll-free number, of course, because we didn't have long distance. And I got that little piece of paper with the golf pencil, and I wrote down, literally ran back to my apartment, called them up and said, "Hi, Palmer, this is Otto. I'm coming to your college. Send me everything you got." And they said, "Who is this?" I said, "It's Otto." And they said, "Have you applied here?" "No, but I'm coming." And they said, "Well, have you?" I said, "No, I'm coming. Just send me everything. I'm coming." And so that was in the spring of, I don't know what year. And then I called my mom and said, I'm coming back home and get my prerequisites. And I came back to my hometown, right where I am right now. And I spent a year cramming, many times being dramatically in deep water over my head in studies. I'm not the sharpest. I'm not the sharpest cat with the claws. And by any means, I'm a grinder. I have to grind stuff out.
Same.
And that got me there. But
how long have you been in practice?
30 years and 10 months.
Wow. It's amazing. I just celebrated 25.
It's
amazing.
And it must be just like you in that I think I'm getting good at it now.
I think so. I think that's why they call it practice, right? Yeah.
But over the weekend I was talking to a couple of my friends who are just a couple of years in practice, and one of the guys is Italian. He's speaking to me while he's adjusting me. He's speaking to me in Italian. I'm speaking back to him in Italian. And we talked about going back to our hometown, our parents' hometowns. And I went back to my grandfather's hometown, a tiny, tiny, tiny town in the mountains far west of Rome, in Abruzzo, tiny, tiny little town. And Abruzzo is like the last bastion of true Italy, and that it's remote. And we go up there, and it's a small town. And I sat in his church where he sat as a child, and he came down from that it was tough going up in a car. I can't imagine. Did he have a donkey? What was he doing? How did he get down? How did he get from over to Naples? And I don't know that. And it's all a mystery to me. But he left that when he was about like 17 years old. He never saw his parents again.
Amazing.
He never saw his parents again. He gave that all up to come to America. And every time I think to myself, man, the world is just conspiring against me, or I think I got the world by the short hairs, I think to myself, that guy came to this country to give me a chance. So don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I sit back and go like, he never saw his parents again. And so that was, and the next sentence other sentence that changed my life was in my mom's last months of life. My mom died of a disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Idiopathic, we don't know. Pulmonary, lung, fibrosis, scar tissue. The inside of her lung started turning to scar tissue from the bottom up. And we watched her go through 2 years in which the more it progressed, the more she started to not be able to breathe. And you watch someone that you love slowly start to suffocate. And it sucks in so many ways. She taught me independence. She taught me how, just because everybody's doing that thing, you don't want to, then don't. Or if you want to go do this thing and everybody say, no, you want to go, you do what you want to do. And she taught me independence. To watch someone who was tethered to an oxygen tank, who only had that much, where she had freedom to move, was devastating. But in the last couple of months of her life, people used to stop by on Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons for brunch. And it was their way of saying goodbye. And one day I was there for brunch, and she said, she got up and walked from her chair in the kitchen to her glider, her green glider. And it's 15 steps. If it's 15 steps, you and I take it, we don't even think about it. We could somersault there. She had to stop 3 or 4 times to get there because she was out of breath each time. So she had to stop. And she got there and she falls down, slips down into her chair, and she's gasping for breath still. It's 30 seconds. She's still gasping. She tells me to call the priest. And I said, are we on a calendar or are we on a stopwatch? She goes, just call him. Okay. And the next sentence she said to me, I'm sitting on her ottoman, just sitting next to her. She says, while she's gasping, she goes, without your health, you have nothing. And I had no idea what those words did to me. 6 words. I had no idea what they did to me because I was consumed by my mom was dying. Mm-hmm. She dies, and then my dad dies 5 months later. And so those words sat in me. They are tattooed on my heart, and they are, burned into my brain. And so that leads me to Empire Longevity and saying, I need to do more for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So I'm like just trying to breathe so I don't break down on camera, but that story is amazing, how impactful, and the ability to be able to take that story and launch it, 1,000 ships with it, to be able to get other people to have a wake up call, right? I mean, that, sadly, that wasn't a wake up call for your mom, right? I mean, that was her path at the moment. But for other people, if they've had a wake up call, a health scare, it's an opportunity. And that story should be able to impact them in a way that builds upon whatever the wake up call was, to say, holy shit, I got to get it together. Like, enough is enough. I talk about a patient of mine she's in her 40s, and she's sick. She's got gut issues, and she doesn't sleep well, and she's stressed to no end, and she's not doing the work. And every time she says to me, I'm still in pain and chiropractic's not working, and I just look at her and she goes, I know what you're going to tell me. And then she starts talking about all the things, and I got to change my diet, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. I go, okay, so what? You know, she goes, well, I don't. And then she was telling me how she says, I don't understand. I lost 7 pounds or something. And she goes, and all I did was I made fettuccine Alfredo for dinner for the family. And then I took it and I had it for lunch the next day. And she put on like 2 or 3 pounds. And she goes, I don't understand why I can't have fettuccine Alfredo. And I go, how old are you? And let's call her 45. And I said, because you spent 45 years and look where it got you. Right. It's time to stop. And these stories that we hear, people like your mom, like, nobody wants to end up like that. That's not an existence to go through personally, or watch somebody you love go through that. Do you want that for your kids? What has been your biggest challenge? I mean, I know that story alone is deep and emotional and can be inspiring, but what's been your biggest, I guess, roadblock or challenge in getting people to get out of their own way? People like my chicken Alfredo patient, getting out of their own way and finally stepping into the world that they deserve. To me, health is a birthright. So what's your biggest challenge? How have you been able to take people who just won't to, okay, I have to now?
Great question. So let's zoom into the future. And let's zoom to the future and let's talk about, there's 2 people in your future who look just like you, Paula. They look just like you. And the one person's at the wedding of the high school graduation of your grandson. And that person's in the back, or they're at the wedding of your grandson. They're at the wedding of your grandson, and they're going like this. And that one person who looks just like you, is going, I want the first dance, second dance, third dance, fourth dance. I'll take all the dances. I'm going to be here. Here we go. Down. They're up there. They got the party going. Yes, they got the party going. And that person is just full of the spark of the life. That person is independent. And there's another person who looks just like you also, who's in the chair over there, who has to be helped up to go do everything, who might have the oxygen on, something like that, and who can't do things. There are one of those 2 people in your future. Which one do you choose?
I choose the vital, active one who wants all the dances.
Then we need to do these things over here.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do the things you want to do, where do you think? Not where you'd like to go. Mm-hmm. Where do you think you'd go at your status right now? Well, I'll probably end up over there. Yeah. Are you okay with that? I'm not going to make the choices for you. I'm not going to put any kind of guilt upon you, but which one do you want to do? I want to do that one. Then let's do this. Then let's go do this. I know how to help you do that. 1,000 people who can help you. But we need to go do this. And
they've got to be able to take that first step. I agree with you. I can't care more than anybody else, but they gotta, they have to get out of their own way.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different. People get the mentality that change is hard. No, it is not. Change is different. It's not hard. It's not hard.
And there's plenty of information, and even with, and we're going to talk about our TED Talks, but when I did my TED Talk, one of the things that I talked about was how the multitude of it, if you get online and eggs are bad for you, eggs are good for you, coffee's bad, coffee's good, meat is good, meat is bad. Nobody knows what the F to do. But here's the thing, you know what not to do. You absolutely know that sitting on the couch with a bag of Doritos and a bottle of soda is, that's a freaking slow death. So you might be confused about what to do, but why don't you just start thinking about what not to do? Stop. Don't use confusion over what's healthy and what's not.
And overwhelm.
Don't use that as an excuse to say, well, and I'm just going to continue to eat Cheetos and ice cream at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
Like to me, I feel like people use that crutch, right?
Much.
And I think it's, I love to, tell in stories, and I know you do too, but I was having a conversation with also Chicken Alfredo gal, who I always tell her, I go, listen, if you ever hear me talk about you, if you ever hear your stories, it's you, right? And I love her dearly. And she's really an amazing human being. So I just want to preface that. But, I was asking her, I said, listen, how much protein are you getting in a day? Just specifically that, because with menopausal women, that's an important piece. And she's like, well, I eat get those Jimmy Dean. And I'm like, oh God, you lost me at Jimmy Dean. And I go, let's look that up. And I pull it up on the computer. I go, there's barely an egg in here. It's all chemicals. And when you're talking about, because she also was saying eating healthy is really expensive. I go, these are $4.99 for 2 egg bites. Do you know, a dozen eggs is $5. Like you'll get 20 of these out of that. So, just looking at, again, those kinds, she was like, wait, they're bad. So then I have to actually go back even further, go further upstream. I go, gosh, some people actually don't know that stuff is bad too. So, I look at, I was watching a video. It was actually a woman criticizing Dr. John Berg, if you know who he is on YouTube. He's a chiropractor, nutrition guy. And he was talking about what he eats in a day. And I was like, man, kudos to you for your bulletproof whatever. And he went through and he was like, and I eat turkey sausage. And when I was like, turkey sausage, what? But he was going through this whole thing of his day. And I go, the average person doesn't even know that eggs in a box frozen in the freezer section is bad. You expect people to actually go and follow, this is what I eat in a day. Like, how about we just get them to take that first step? Like just the knowledge of the average human just isn't there. And I think that's from a longevity perspective, we have to give them these little steps and tools to go, no. Let's make sure that we get rid of the garbage, right? First of all, just clean up shop. Let's start sweeping.
We start with the simple stuff first. And I always, and there's three words I use, which I filter most of my life through now. That is what's reasonable, what's effective, and what's cost effective. And my practice, my business, my life, what's reasonable, what's effective, what's cost effective. If we can start there, what's reasonable? Okay, let's just start. And the mentality that eating well is eating healthy is expensive. What a great full of crap that was started by the processed food companies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, that's going to be expensive. Well, it might be less expensive today, but 10 years from now, when you're on those 4 medications and you can't be the one dancing in the back, then it gets super cost effective.
There was a commercial from I think like the 80s or the 90s, and it was for I think like Valvoline oil filters, something for a car. And they were talking about, maintaining your vehicle with this, we'll call it a Valvoline oil filter for my lack of memory. But the commercial said, pay for it now or pay for it later.
Sure.
Because this particular filter was more expensive than the others, but was known to give your car more longevity. So how's it any different than today, right? Pay for it now or pay for it later. Because you're right, like people $500 to $1,000, if not more, a month on medication, and then you feel like crap, and then you're sitting in a wheelchair at your grandson's wedding, like not a life to live.
Yeah, Kaiser Permanente, the insurance giant from California, shows that the average American, every American is averaging 15 filled prescriptions a year. 15. And
unbelievable.
I filled none last year. That means there's some guy in Passaic, New Jersey, who's honking down 30 a year.
Yeah.
And you do not get into a long quality of life through better chemistry.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Never been shown.
I went and got adjusted on, it was last week, Friday. and my friend who I go to, and he said something to me, and I thought, I never thought about this. And he said, what is one thing that's in every single home from an influence perspective? I was like, I don't know.
Aspirin.
Even worse, Otto, a medicine cabinet.
Right.
And that's what you see on TV, right? TV shows, and people go into the bathrooms and they look in the medicine cabinet, and it's full of not just aspirin, but all kinds of stuff. But you're right, not just aspirin in there, but the whole medicine cabinet. And I think I'm going to do a video on my medicine cabinet, which is basically an apothecary, and the dangers of that. You get to walk into a store and just walk down an aisle like you're
Pick anything you want.
Right. Take anything you want.
As if they had no side effects.
Yeah.
And there's no chemical interactions between them.
Well, why would they make it that simple if they're dangerous, Otto?
The same thing as, why would they make a food that wasn't good for you? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, follow the money, right?
I'm the guy who's in the grocery store, who's taking the time and reading the labels.
Same.
Going like, oh, okay, that's Otto. I don't even know what those 7 words are. Okay.
Right.
I always ask people, do you know what the ingredients are in a banana? It's banana.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah. Your food shouldn't necessarily have a label, right? Unless it says olive oil or
90% of the stuff in a grocery store is processed food. 90%.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I literally just found out about a half hour before we got on here. I have a patient who he gets raw milk, and he gets his beef from like Indiana or something. So I reached out to the farmer that I get my beef, my pork, and Christmas trees and all kinds of stuff from. And I said, hey, a patient of mine told me this. I had no idea. Okay. 11 years almost of dating a grass-fed beef farmer. I had no idea that when they put a cow through the aging process, they spray it with one of 3 chemical compounds. Did you know this? And so my patient was saying that he said they have to avoid it. One of them, citric acid. He says it'll either be acetic acid, lactic acid, or fresh bloom, which contains citric acid to reduce bacterial load on the animal during aging.
What's that mean, aging?
So they hang the meat and they age the meat before they then butcher it. So they slaughter it and then they hang it, and that ages it. So you've like Kobe beef is like aged for whatever amount of time. So they spray. So even if you're buying grass-fed beef from a USDA processing facility, it will still have one of these 3 things sprayed on it. So this patient of mine actually gets his beef from Indiana because that particular farmer, I think they do have like an on-farm processor, and they don't spray with that. They just wash it with water and age it. And then that's how they get their beef. So can you imagine if that's what's happening with like in the grass-fed beef industry from a USDA processor? What happens when you go into, Kroger and you just buy meat out of the case there? I mean, we don't even know. We've got 3D printed meat these days, right? So this is, and I'm a big proponent of local farming and making sure you're getting all your food from local farmers, because I think even at the very least, if I'm I don't have an issue with citric acid, but I don't know, do I? Is that, one extra thing, or have I done myself good because I'm buying a grass-fed, heritage, type of animal? Like, I'm not sure. So we can only do so much, right? I mean, and then we've got our chemtrails. We could go into, a million places with that.
Here we are.
So tell us a little bit about your, Otto has been chosen. He's had the honor of being chosen to do a TED Talk. Give us a little bit of insight on that and what you're going to talk about.
So it's next week. It's on the 4th, May 4th. The neatest thing is it's in my hometown. I mean, it's like a mile right over there. And that is in itself is a neat thing, because I'm the only local person who's been chosen.
That's great.
And that's just kind of neat. I think I'm 20 to 30 years older than anybody else too, which is interesting. But so the overall theme of the day is freedom dreaming. And I am speaking on the freedom of independence in longevity. And I go through and I tell my stories.
It's amazing. I can't wait to hear it. How many people are they typically expecting for you?
I think that place can hold like hundreds and hundreds, but they're maxing at 300 because at 301 they have to have like fire training and security and stuff like this, and so they're going to max at 300 because of all the other stuff that has to go into it if they don't. So they're going to max at 300. Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, and then Otto and I are going to come back for another episode, and we're both going to talk about our TEDx experiences. So how cool will that be to be able to talk about our stories from that perspective, the experience of the day. You're going to meet some incredible people. Have you ever been to a TEDx event?
I have. I've been to two. I've been to two, and I have applied to two others previously, so I've been denied the first two times.
What's wrong with them? I mean,
I don't know.
That's okay. You're in now. That's okay. It's meant to be now. So
I'm in now, and it'll be neat. We have 16 minutes max. They're hoping you do 12. A lot like my love life. I'll probably cut that short too.
So wait, you get 60 minutes to talk?
16.
Oh, 60. I was like, what? Okay.
We get 7 hours.
Oh my God. I know. I'm like, oh my God. I had 8. So yeah, I took a 20-minute talk, whittled it to 10 for a summer event. And then when I got chosen, they're like, what do you want to talk about? I go, well, I got this 10-minute thing. I've already done it twice. I'm going to shave 2 more minutes off of it. So that was my talk. Yeah. So it's awesome.
Cool.
So, all right. So tell us about Longevity Insiders and what is the premise? How does that work in your group? I know you've got a couple of different podcasts. So give us all the ways that people can talk to you, connect with you on longevity. Well, how about give us 2?
So I do a couple of different podcasts. I do one podcast strictly for my hometown. I live in upstate New York in a small college town. And that one's called Crown City Stories. And I just interview the people who are around here. And it may be of no interest to you, but it's the interest of people of here. And I love being able to meet people because the premise is that everybody has a story. And the story might be that long or it might be that long, but everybody's got a story. So I love that one. I have the Empire Longevity podcast, in which I get to talk about longevity, all the different facets that go along with it, about relationships, about love, about work, about reading, there's so many aspects. It's daunting, but we get to have people on there and talk with them. Or I also love doing 2-minute podcasts, and let's do 2 minutes on this. I do a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, and you can find us and ask to join us. That'd be no problem. They're called the Empire Longevity Insiders on Facebook. And weekly on Wednesdays, we have a specific podcast for them. And I'll shoot it on YouTube and move over to on Facebook for them. And it'll be an insight we have. A lot of times we do them live. And I answer your questions. You write them in there and I answer your questions and interact with our group right there. I love doing that because you get to meet people also. You get to interact with people with their real-time questions. It's neat stuff. People think that we think we're the only ones who have our problems. And we think we're the only ones, for instance, who have had parents die, or we're the only ones who've been divorced, or we're the only ones who've had business problems. There are millions of people just like you, and you're not alone. And on this path for our next best decades, come on along. You're going to meet some of the coolest people that there are. You're going to find how simple it is, how rewarding it is, and small steps lead to big gains.
Yeah. Love it. I think that's it's great to be in so many different places. I go live on Sunday nights on my YouTube channel. I go live Monday mornings in my Facebook group, Dr. Paula's Living Well. And it's interesting. It's a completely different audience in both places and a completely different type of interaction. So, I thought I was going to feel like I was overlapping, but what I found was I'm just reaching two different audiences, and it's cool. It's just, how many different ways can we influence, inspire, and and get the message out. And one of the things, I actually heard this from I think Dr. Peter Attia, so I can't take full credit for it, but he talked about, what do you want the last decade of your life to look like?
Sure.
And I started asking my clients this, what do you want your last decade of your life to look like? And I had multiple people, when I ask this question, they'll say, I'll say, well, when do you think your last decade would be? 80 to 90, 70 to 80. And people will say, well, I don't even think I'll be alive in 10 years. I'm
Absolutely.
like, that's sad, right? Like, that's so sad. And so then I say, okay, well, if you want to live 80 to 90, what do you want to be doing? And like you're saying, the grandson's wedding or whatever it is, you still want to be picking up your grandkids. You still want to be walking every day. I still want to be traveling. I feel like I'm on a pretty darn good trajectory to live to 95, 85. I don't know. I think I'm going past 85. I'm thinking 90 to 100, and be able to live, continue to have that vitality. But if where you are today does not look like you're going to make it to those last 10 years, if you're saying, I don't think I'll be alive in 10 years, then yeah, you got to change something. And just like we plan out all the things in our lives, okay, then what do you need to do to look like still playing with your kids, still walking every day, still traveling, still living on your own, still driving, whatever that looks like? What has to happen today? Lay out the plan. And I think that's where you and I come in for our clients, and being able to help them navigate that path and make those changes so that, you mentioned overwhelm. When you have somebody come in who's overwhelmed, where's the first thing you do with them? How do you guide them?
So I have them stop. It's the first thing.
Elaborate and listen. Ice is bad. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That wasn't part of it.
Okay.
I first have them stop, and I ask them, we start with the simple things first. What's the simplest step you can take? I don't know. What if there was one step? What would you do? Well, I guess I could. Yeah, you could. Let's start there then.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I could start with walking for 10 minutes. I had a woman who couldn't walk to her mailbox.
Mm.
And it's not like she had, not like she had a quarter-mile driveway. She had a driveway that's right down there.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't walk there. We had to get her to walk to there and back. And then I had to do it a number of times. Then we could go for that quarter mile. Then we go for the half mile. So you start with the start.
Yeah.
You're not going to build, you don't build, the Taj Mahal in one day. You start by laying the plans to lay the first brick, and then you go from there. Yeah. And it's not, change isn't hard. It's just different than what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
I love that perspective. It's just different, because I think if we can, that actually, I really, really want people to think about that for a minute. It's the simplest of statements. Change is not hard. It's different. But think about that, because we talk ourselves into or out of things because of those narratives. Eating healthy is expensive. Change is hard. But I'm glad you said that, because I never really thought about it I never thought about it like that. So I hope that everybody is listening thinks about it in that perspective. Change the narrative in your head that is preventing you from getting the next decades of your life as the best decades of your life. Did I get it? Swinging for the fences, baby.
Always.
That's awesome. Otto, is there anything you would like people to know or say, any last words of wisdom before we let you go? Appreciate your time here. And before we come back again for our TED Talks.
My email is otto@empirelongevity.com. Contact me there anytime you want to. And I'm a lot better dancer than you think I'd be.
Well, he's an amazing musician too. So there's that.
I'm not a good dancer.
No, you're not a good dancer?
I will fool you into believing that, but
Okay. Okay. That's where like there has to be enough cocktails, right? It's kind of like karaoke, right?
You can drink. I don't
That's
drink.
what I'm saying. If ever somebody asked me about singing, I said, listen, or karaoke, and I said, I love to sing. And the more that everybody has had to drink, the better I sound. So
okay, let's go.
yeah, let's do it. Yeah. All right, this is awesome. I'm going to make sure I drop all of Otto's links into the show notes, so you can make sure you drop down there, find his links to his podcasts, his private page, YouTube channel, email, all the good things, and stay connected, because together, you know, he and I are on a mission to create longevity and legacy in the world. And you know, I think that having friends like you, Otto, and colleagues and, you know, companions, compadres, whatever you want to call us, to be able to not just put us two together, but, you know, having two of us here today to share this message is exponential. You know, it's not just 1 + 1 makes 2. We need to continue to bring more like minds together so that we can influence on an you know, much broader scale. So I thank you for everything today. It's been such a pleasure, as always, to speak with you, and appreciate all of you being here. Please make sure you subscribe, like, share this with somebody you know who needs a message of inspiration and hope to change their lives so that they can live that longevity and have the vitality that, again, I believe is our birthright. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks, Otto.
Bye, Ruff.